Xueling. EngSubs and her companions furrowed their brows as they glanced at the sudden appearance of the Sword Sect disciples. It seemed they hadn't expected to be teleported into this region, and judging by their expression, it was clear they had their own methods to deal with the swarm of ants, and had also sensed the commotion on this side. Lin Dong's gaze swept over the group of Sword Sect disciples and quickly noticed that, aside from Xueling, who had reached the peak of the 9th Nirvana stage, another disciple had also attained the 9th Nirvana stage. While their strength wasn't weak, when compared to the Dao Sect disciples, they were slightly inferior. If a battle broke out between both sides, it was inevitable that there would be casualties, something neither group wanted to see. Lin Dong turned his attention to EngSubs, who appeared to be in deep thought. She seemed reluctant to engage the Sword Sect disciples here, likely due to their already strained relationship with the Yuan sect. If they were to make enemies of yet another sect, it would put them in an even more precarious position. In the sky, Xueling gazed down with a smile at Lin Dong and EngSubs. He was well aware that the Dao sect disciples were stronger, but he also knew of their concerns, which was why his words lacked much apprehension. Let them go for the life mystique bone pearls first. A quiet voice suddenly sounded behind Lin Dong. It was EngHuan, speaking softly enough that only Lin Dong could hear. Hearing her voice, Lin Dong hesitated for a moment before glancing at her. The girl's bright eyes sparkled with a mischievous glint, like that of a cunning little fox. Lin Dong didn't quite understand why EngHuan suggested this, but after a brief pause, he nodded. Given her connection as a reincarnator, he knew that sometimes her intuition was sharper than his. There are 4 life mystique bone pearls among these corpses. We'll take 2, and the Sword Sect can have the other 2, Lin Dong said calmly, lifting his head toward Xueling, who hovered in the sky. EngSubs and the others were momentarily taken aback by Lin Dong's decision, but after exchanging glances, they didn't voice any objections. Haha, brother Lin Dong is always so reasonable. Our Sword Sect disciples will remember this favor, Xueling chuckled, a glint of surprise flashing in his eyes at Lin Dong's decisiveness. Without hesitation, he extended a large hand, and sharp sword energy surged forth, forming into a luminous palm that shot toward the 2 dried corpses whose energy cores glowed with white light. Just as Xueling made his move, Lin Dong's lips moved slightly, his voice transmitting softly to all the Dao Sect disciples, "Be on guard." Hearing Lin Dong's warning, the Dao Sect disciples' hearts skipped a beat. Almost instinctively, their primordial energy surged, and a golden glow enveloped their bodies as they activated their nirvana golden bodies. Swoosh! The light palm, imbued with fierce sword energy, shot down like lightning toward the corpses. However, just as the palm was about to seize the 2 corpses, a barely perceptible fluctuation rippled from within them. Lin Dong's pupils suddenly constricted at the sight, and his breath caught as he realized. Those 4 corpses, which had glowing energy cores, suddenly opened their eyes. Their sunken eyes glowed blood-red, with strands of black energy curling around them. There was no emotion in their gaze, only pure, unbridled bloodlust. Slash. In an instant, the 4 corpses jerked their heads upward, and with a savage sweep of their withered hands, 4 black waves of energy blasted forth, shattering Xueling's light palm in midair. The residual force then shot toward the Sword Sect disciples in the sky. The sudden change caused Xueling and the other Sword Sect disciples to pale in shock. Fortunately, their reactions were quick. As the black waves neared, they hastily channeled their primordial energy and launched a counteroffensive. Azure Primordial Sword Gesture. Hundreds of sharp sword energies whistled through the air simultaneously, clashing violently with the black waves. The sky was instantly filled with the sound of explosions echoing across the horizon. Ugh! The black waves were terrifyingly powerful, and although the Sword Sect disciples managed to fend them off with sheer numbers, some of them still turned pale and spat out blood, clearly having sustained serious injuries. As expected, there's something strange about them. The Dao Sect disciples, including Lin Dong, watched the scene unfold with shock in their eyes. Inwardly, they felt relieved that they hadn't made the first move. Otherwise, they would have been the ones targeted by the corpses. "Those are demon corpses," EngSubs muttered. her face pale as she stared at the 4 corpses whose blood-red eyes had now opened. She couldn't help but gasp in disbelief. Demon corpses? Lin Dong echoed in confusion. There are many ancient powerhouses who fell in this land long ago. Their bodies were tainted by the demonic energy from the alien demon region and turned into demon corpses, twisted and corrupted, just like the demonic creatures. Although these corpses aren't as strong as they were in life, they still possess formidable power. Each of these 4 demon corpses is likely no weaker than Little Lei King Lei Qian, and once they start killing, they won't stop. Stronger than Lei Qian, Lin Dong's pupils shrank as he made a swift decision. Forget the Life Mystique Bone Pearls. We're leaving. The Life Mystique Bone Pearls were valuable treasures, but they were only worth having if one survived to enjoy them. With 4 demon corpses as strong as these, even though their group could likely hold their own, the cost in lives would be too great. It was a price they couldn't afford to pay. Retreat. EngSubs and Wang Yin gritted their teeth in frustration, but forced themselves to suppress their reluctance. With a wave of her hand, the Dao sect disciples shot into the air, retreating into the distance. As they moved, the sound of a zither once again rang out, holding back the advancing swarm of ants. Senior Brother Shui, the Dao sect is retreating. In the sky, the Sword sect disciples were momentarily stunned when they saw the Dao sect forces retreating so abruptly. Their eyes turned toward Shueling. We're leaving too. These demon corpses are beyond our capabilities. Damn it! How unlucky are we to run into such troublesome things right after entering the alien demon region? Shueling cursed under his breath before decisively leading his group to retreat. As both sides withdrew in unison, the 4 demon corpses slowly rose from the depths of the earth. Their crimson eyes swept across the retreating figures before 2 of them shot toward the Sword sect disciples, while the other 2 chased after the Dao sect. Across the dark wilderness, streaks of light tore through the sky as both groups fled. Occasionally, some of them would glance behind them nervously. We're in trouble. They're still following us. Wang Yan's expression darkened as he cast a glance over his shoulder. 2 demon corpses are on our tail. EngSubs' face grew even more grim. 2 of them, huh? Lin Dong pressed his lips together, his eyes flickering with thought. These demon corpses were as powerful as someone like Lei Qian, but what made them truly troublesome was their lack of pain and fear. Once they started fighting, it was to the death, relentless and extremely difficult to deal with. What should we do? They've locked onto us. If nothing changes, they'll keep pursuing us, Huan said, her delicate brows furrowed in concern. Lin Dong frowned, pondering for a moment before suddenly asking in a low voice, Senior Sister Xiao, if you and Senior Brother Wang Yin join forces, with the support of the other senior brothers, can you handle 1 demon corpse? EngSubs exchanged a glance with Wang Yin and then nodded. If it's just 1, we can manage it. But 2 are chasing us. I'll draw one of them away, Lin Dong said, gritting his teeth slightly. You alone? EngSubs and the others were visibly shocked. Although Lin Dong was no weakling, the demon corpse they were facing was something even Lei Qian had difficulty dealing with. While Lin Dong had managed to outwit Lei Qian in Demon City, this situation wasn't the same. The demon corpse had no sense of pride or reputation to uphold like Lei Qian had. Lin Dong nodded. He had many techniques at his disposal, but it would be difficult to use them all in front of the Dao sect disciples. If he was alone, he'd have fewer concerns. EngSubs and Wang Yin fell silent for a moment, clearly uneasy about letting Lin Dong face a demon corpse on his own. I'll go with you, Huan suddenly said softly, breaking the silence. I brought the heavenly phoenix zither with me. These demonic creatures are strong, but they're weak against sound waves. I can help suppress it, she continued, her bright eyes gazing at Lin Dong with calm determination. Huan is right. Her sound waves can significantly weaken these demonic creatures. EngSubs agreed with a nod. Well, all right. Lin Dong hesitated briefly, but under the persistent gaze of the girl, he finally nodded. After all, Huan was already aware of most of his techniques, and there was a certain tacit understanding between them. Besides, given the current situation, if he refused, this stubborn little lady would likely refuse to back down. Let's go, he said. With a plan in mind, the large group came to a stop in midair. They turned to face the distant horizon, where two beams of dark light, brimming with killing intent, shot toward them. The black figures swept over from the distant sky, bringing with them a thick, murderous aura as they arrived in front of the Tao sect disciples. Now that the two demon corpses had appeared, everyone could finally see them clearly. Their bodies were incredibly dry, devoid of any moisture, yet there was a sense of extreme toughness in their skeletal frames. Their blackened skin was like cast iron, faintly shimmering with an ominous light. A terrifying killing aura radiated from their bodies, and in their sunken, crimson eyes, there was not a trace of human emotion. These ancient powerhouses had long been corrupted by demonic energy, transformed into humanoid monsters. Proceed as planned. Be careful, Lin Dong said gravely, his eyes locked onto the two pursuing demon corpses. He then turned his head to address EngSubs and the others. Got it. You be careful too, EngSubs replied with a nod. Lin Dong didn't say any more. He flicked his finger, sending a sharp burst of primordial energy hurtling toward one of the demon corpses. Roar! The moment the demon corpse was attacked, it let out a low, guttural roar. Its blood-red eyes glowed even brighter, and its body instantly transformed into a streak of black light as it charged toward Lin Dong. Let's move. Seeing the demon corpse rush toward him, Lin Dong gave a low shout to EngHuan before darting off. The two of them turned into streaks of light and flew toward a distant part of the wasteland. Behind them, the demon corpse followed closely, its bloodlust overwhelming. Tao sect disciples, form up. EngSubs' face turned serious as she saw Lin Dong and EngHuan lead one demon corpse away. Her cold, commanding voice rang out as boundless primordial energy surged across the heavens. Two streaks of light cut through the sky. After about 10 minutes, they descended into a barren region. Turning around, they saw the demon corpse relentlessly following them. I'll engage it directly. Be careful, Lin Dong said to the young woman beside him as his gaze fixed on the approaching demon corpse. Understood. EngHuan nodded gently before sitting cross-legged on the ground. With a wave of her hand, the fiery red heavenly phoenix zither appeared once again. A subtle yet powerful wave began to emanate from it, and even Lin Dong couldn't help but feel moved by its intensity. The phoenix carved into the zither seemed almost ready to take flight. It was clear that EngHuan had secretly been practicing with the zither. Compared to the last time, her control over it had grown much more proficient. Huff! Lin Dong took a deep breath and clenched his hand, causing the black tree trunk to appear in his grasp. At the same time, a surge of green light flowed across his body as his arms and legs transformed into their dragonized state. He couldn't afford to be careless against such a creature. Boom! As Lin Dong activated his dragon transformation, the black figure of the demon corpse arrived. Without any preamble or warning, its sharp claws, enveloped in black light, lashed out like lightning, aiming straight for Lin Dong's chest. Clang! Lin Dong stepped forward, and the primordial energy within him surged like a tidal wave. His fearsome dragon arm swung the heavy black tree trunk, colliding head-on with the demon corpse's deadly claws. A crisp sound like metal clashing reverberated through the air, followed by an invisible shockwave spreading from the point of impact. In the next moment, the ground beneath them collapsed, with massive cracks spreading out like a spider web. The powerful shockwave caused Lin Dong to stagger back several steps, his entire arm slightly numb. His heart sank as he realized just how fierce the demon corpse was. Although it wasn't as strong as it had been in life, its body, now corrupted by demonic energy, was even more brutal. Every part of its body had become a deadly weapon. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Though Lin Dong had been knocked back, the demon corpse gave him no time to recover. Black energy surged as its sharp attacks, like black blades, targeted Lin Dong's vital points one after another. Even Lin Dong, with his considerable combat experience, found himself momentarily overwhelmed by the sheer ferocity of the attacks. For the moment, he was completely suppressed. Thrum. Just as Lin Dong was being forced onto the defensive, the clear, melodic sound of a zither, like a phoenix's cry, suddenly rang out. A surge of red sound waves shot forth, slamming into the demon corpse and forcing it back several steps. The red sound waves then transformed into countless strands that wrapped around the demon corpse's body, burrowing into its skin and spreading inside. As the sound waves infiltrated its body, the demon corpse's killing aura noticeably weakened, and its attacks lost much of their previous ferocity. Taking advantage of the demon corpse's momentary hesitation, Lin Dong finally regained his footing. His eyes gleamed with determination as he stepped forward. The scales on his dragon arm shimmered with green light, and the black tree trunk swung down like a shadow, carrying terrifying force as it slammed into the demon corpse's body. Boom! With a fierce strike, Lin Dong sent the demon corpse flying dozens of meters away, leaving a deep trail on the ground. What a tough body! Even after knocking the demon corpse back with such force, Lin Dong's expression remained serious. His previous attack had felt like hitting the hardest iron. The sheer physical resilience of the demon corpse surpassed even that of a 9th Nirvana stage expert. Wild Demon Eye. Seeing the demon corpse rise once more from the ground, showing no sign of weakening, Lin Dong's eyes turned cold. His hand gestures changed, and a demonic eye appeared at his brow. A powerful gray beam, full of destructive energy, shot forth and struck the demon corpse again. Boom! The demon corpse was sent flying once more, but before it could get up again, a giant ancient hand, brimming with overwhelming force, came crashing down. Great Wilderness Celestial Prison Hand. The ground cracked open, revealing a deep pit, and the demon corpse was slammed into the earth. However, despite this fierce attack, Lin Dong's expression grew even more grim. He could sense that, even after taking such powerful blows, the demon corpse remained largely unscathed. This thing was like an indestructible monster. The earth erupted, and the black figure of the demon corpse crawled out once more. Its sunken, blood-red eyes sent chills down anyone's spine. Lin Dong narrowed his eyes at the demon corpse climbing out of the ground. His gaze shifted slightly to its energy core, which glowed with white light. This must be the demon corpse's weak spot. However, the eerie black, shriveled skin covering it acted as an impenetrable shield. The only way to harm its weak point is to thin out its defenses. Lin Dong's eyes gleamed as he narrowed his gaze. Huan, can you hold it in place for a bit? Lin Dong turned toward Huan and asked in a serious tone. I can, but only for a short while. Huan bit her lip after a brief pause, agreeing reluctantly. Lin Dong took a deep breath, bringing his palms together. A radiant light began to shine between his hands, and a faintly discernible light array appeared. Roar! Sensing the light array, the demon corpse let out a low growl. Its figure transformed into a streak of black light, lunging straight at Lin Dong. Screech! Seeing the demon corpse charging forward, Huan clenched her teeth and swiftly strummed the strings of her zither with lightning speed, her fingers moving so fast they became a blur. Swoosh! 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 As the zither strings resonated, red sound waves shot out, weaving together around the demon corpse. Demon suppression melody. Huan's fingers suddenly froze, and the countless sound waves transformed into intricate musical notes, which clung to the demon corpse's body, forcing it to halt. Creak! However, the hold was clearly fragile. As the demon corpse struggled violently, the musical notes began to crack. A pale hue crept across Huan's face, but she stubbornly bit her lip, her fingers gripping the zither strings so tightly that drops of blood began to seep from her fingertips. Still, she refused to let go. Crack! The sound of breaking notes rang out as the musical cymbals finally shattered. Huan let out a muffled groan, a streak of blood appearing at the corner of her mouth. Swoosh! The moment it broke free, the demon corpse's blood-red eyes locked onto Huan. It changed its target, unleashing a powerful wave of murderous intent as it charged toward her. Seeing the demon corpse rushing at her, Huan's face paled. She quickly moved to play her heavenly phoenix zither again, but just as her fingers touched the strings, a figure appeared in front of her like a phantom. Disintegrate! Lin Dong's eyes were cold as the light array in his hands expanded to half a meter in size. In the next instant, it reversed, and a beam of light, carrying an indescribable energy, shot out and struck the demon corpse's energy core. Sizzle. The light beam hit the demon corpse, and its strange black skin began to dissolve at an alarming rate. Its formidable defenses had been completely neutralized. Swoosh. Lin Dong's body shot forward like a bolt of lightning, and in the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of the demon corpse. His dragonized arm thrust out, easily piercing the demon corpse's abdomen. When he pulled his hand back, a white light orb appeared in his palm, within which a pill spun slowly. Boom. As the white orb left the demon corpse's body, the once rampaging creature suddenly lost all of its bloodlust. Its crimson eyes faded, and it collapsed to the ground, lifeless. Phew. Seeing the demon corpse finally subdued, Lin Dong let out a sigh of relief. He turned to look at EngSubs, whose lips were stained with blood. Feeling a pang of concern, he asked helplessly, "Did you really have to push yourself so hard? Would it kill you to ask for help?" The girl gently wiped the blood from her lips with her delicate hand. Normally lively, she now appeared unexpectedly serene as she hugged her crimson zither. She raised her head slightly and flashed a brilliant smile. "At least this way, you won't think I'm dragging you down." Lin Dong was taken aback, standing beside the demon corpse in silence. His expression turned complicated as he looked at the girl who had just fought by his side. EngSubs' clear, playful smile returned as she noticed his expression. She waved at Lin Dong, laughing lightly. "Hey, don't just stand there. Be careful, or the demon corpse might get back up." Lin Dong couldn't help but laugh at her words. Shaking his head, he replied, "I never said you were a burden. In fact, in the future, it might be me holding you back." EngSubs had the hidden identity of a reincarnator, and although Lin Dong didn't know much about what that entailed, he was certain that if she ever awakened, her strength would be terrifying. When that day came, it was anyone's guess who would be the one slowing the other down. EngSubs blinked her large eyes, unsure why Lin Dong would say such a thing. After thinking for a moment, she smiled and said, "If that day comes, don't worry. I won't blame you for holding me back. I'll protect you." With that, she couldn't help but cover her mouth and giggle, as if imagining the normally strong Lin Dong needing her protection was a highly amusing thought. Lin Dong shook his head helplessly, deciding not to continue with the topic. Instead, he shifted his gaze to the white orb in his palm. The white light was gentle, and within the orb, a thumb-sized pill spun continuously, radiating an extraordinary vitality that seemed endless. "So this is the Life Mystique Bone Pill?" EngSubs walked over, looking curiously at the glowing orb in Lin Dong's hand. "Yeah." Lin Dong smiled and nodded. They had indeed been lucky this time. If the Sword Sect disciples hadn't drawn away 2 of the demon corpses, even with their strength, they might have had no choice but to flee. Just dealing with 1 demon corpse was troublesome enough. If they had faced 4, they would have been in grave danger. As for how the Sword Sect disciples were faring against the demon corpses that had pursued them, Lin Dong wasn't too concerned. After all, they had gotten themselves into this mess. While Lin Dong had no intention of harming them, he wasn't about to go out of his way to help them either. After examining the Life Mystique Bone Pill in his hand for a moment, Lin Dong stored it in his na ring. His gaze then shifted to the fallen demon corpse on the ground. After some contemplation, he crouched down and touched the corpse's body with his fingers. The skin was as hard as iron and icy to the touch. The demon corpse's body had been strengthened to an astonishing degree after being corrupted by demonic energy, even surpassing the toughness of Lin Dong's own body, which had been tempered by the Azure Sky Dragon transformation art. "What are you thinking?" EngSubs asked, confused by Lin Dong's actions. "This demon corpse's body is incredibly tough. Leaving it here seems like such a waste," Lin Dong muttered as he clicked his tongue. "People from the 10,000 Puppet Sect would love something like this," EngSubs explained. "They could refine it into a puppet. But we don't have that kind of skill. Besides, this demon corpse isn't like an ordinary body. It's filled with demonic energy from the alien demon region. If you try to refine it without proper methods, the demonic energy will invade your mind, and you'll lose your sanity. Refining it into a puppet, Lin Dong's eyes flickered at the thought. While he had once controlled a puppet, it had been something he found already made, so he didn't have the ability to create one himself. However, controlling this demon corpse might not be entirely impossible. What if I place my essence spirit into the demon corpse? Wouldn't I be able to control it? Lin Dong looked up at EngHuan, suggesting his idea. His plan was simple. Now that he had successfully condensed his essence spirit, he could enter the demon corpse's body and use the power of his essence spirit to control it, essentially turning it into a puppet. No way. The demonic energy inside the demon corpse is too strong. Even refining it is dangerous for most people. If you place your essence spirit inside, the demonic energy will invade it immediately. That's as good as committing suicide. EngHuan's face turned pale upon hearing Lin Dong's suggestion, and she hurriedly voiced her concern. That's only true for ordinary essence spirits, Lin Dong replied with a smile. He then extended his hand, and a small essence spirit, no bigger than a palm, appeared from his palm. As it materialized, black patterns began to surface on its exterior, forming a mysterious rune. The black rune emitted a faint devouring force, like a black hole. Is that the devouring ancestral talisman? EngHuan asked quietly as she looked at the black rune on the essence spirit. She didn't seem too surprised, as she had likely learned through other channels that Lin Dong possessed the devouring ancestral talisman. Yes, with the protection of the devouring ancestral talisman, no matter how strong the demonic energy is inside the demon corpse, it won't be able to harm me, Lin Dong said, smiling. This was why he was confident in sending his essence spirit into the demon corpse. Without the devouring ancestral talisman, he wouldn't dare take such a risk. With the devouring ancestral talisman, it should be fine, EngHuan said, letting out a sigh of relief as she nodded in agreement. Stand guard for me while I try it out. Lin Dong's eyes sparkled with excitement. He had personally experienced how tough and resilient the demon corpse was. Its ability to withstand attacks had even given him a headache. If not for the reversal of the ancient heaven and earth array, which had allowed him to discover the disintegration force, he might not have been able to break through the demon corpse's defenses. Controlling the demon corpse would give him a powerful new ally in battle. Got it, EngHuan replied, stepping back to give him space. Lin Dong sat cross-legged in front of the demon corpse and first took a moment to calm his internal primordial energy. Once his expression grew serious, he focused his mind, and the essence spirit in his hand shot out, diving into the demon corpse through its Tianling Gai, crown of the head. Hiss. As Lin Dong's essence spirit entered the demon corpse, the once still corpse suddenly reacted. Waves of dense black demonic energy surged from its body and rushed toward its head, where a ring of golden light emanated. The black demonic energy continued to surge toward the golden light, surrounding it and attempting to invade it. As the demonic energy pressed in, the golden light quickly began to weaken. Humph! Lin Dong's eyes darkened at the sight, and he let out a cold snort. His hand seals changed, and within the golden light, a black rune appeared. It transformed into a black hole, enveloping his essence spirit and protecting it. Hiss! The demonic energy that touched the black hole was instantly devoured by its power. However, Lin Dong's expression shifted as he realized that this demonic energy wasn't beneficial to him at all. In fact, it seemed to taint his previously pure primordial energy. He quickly activated the Devouring Ancestral Talisman to disintegrate the demonic energy completely. With the protection of the Devouring Ancestral Talisman, Lin Dong's essence spirit remained safe. And after seeing that its invasion was ineffective, the demonic energy gradually receded back into the demon corpse's body. As the demonic energy retreated, a strange sensation began to stir within Lin Dong. He issued a mental command, and the demon corpse lying on the ground abruptly opened its eyes. The sudden movement startled EngHuan, but when she saw that the demon corpse wasn't attacking, she sighed in relief. It seemed Lin Dong's plan had worked. Lin Dong's eyes burned with excitement as he watched the demon corpse stand up under his command. Its eyes were no longer blood red but a faint gold, and its previously overwhelming bloodlust had significantly diminished. Did it work? EngHuan asked cautiously. Looks like it, Lin Dong replied with a grin. He gave another mental command, and the demon corpse obediently stood by his side like a loyal guard. Now this is a real prize, Lin Dong said, his eyes gleaming with excitement. Compared to the life mystique bone pill, being able to control the demon corpse was far more thrilling. This was ready-made battle strength. With it, he would have a much easier time when he eventually faced the Yuan sect. Should we head back to join Sister Xiao Xiao and the others? I hope they're not having too much trouble with the other demon corpse, EngHuan suggested, feeling a bit uneasy at Lin Dong's intense gaze toward the demon corpse. Yeah, Lin Dong nodded in agreement. As Lin Dong thought about the situation, his eyes narrowed slightly. After experiencing firsthand how difficult the demon corpse was to deal with, he realized that even though Xiao Xiao and the others had more people on their side, if they couldn't contain the demon corpse, the regular disciples wouldn't be able to withstand its assault. The casualties could be severe. Let's go, Lin Dong said without further delay. With a quick shout, his figure shot forward, with EngHuan close behind. Following them like a shadow was the demon corpse under his control. Maintain the formation and seal it in. Don't let it break free. On a desolate plain, hundreds of figures floated in the air, forming a peculiar array. Boundless primordial energy surged from their bodies, converging into a massive light formation that sealed off the center. Within the glowing formation, a black demon corpse was violently crashing into the barrier, causing ripples to spread through the light array with each strike. Whoosh! Wang Yan's heavy sword slashed down with a sharp, fierce sword chi that viciously struck the demon corpse, sending it flying before it rebounded off the light array and slammed back to the ground. However, despite the powerful blow, the demon corpse immediately got up again, with only a faint white mark on its body. Damn it, its defense is too strong, Wang Yan muttered with a grim expression. His strike would have been difficult for even a 9th Nirvana stage expert to withstand, yet it had barely left a mark on the demon corpse. Beside him, Xiao Xiao's face was equally serious. Although they had managed to trap the demon corpse with sheer numbers, their attacks were having little effect. The demon corpse, seemingly oblivious to fear or exhaustion, was like a relentless killing machine. Prolonging the fight wouldn't be good for them. They couldn't afford to spend all their time battling this creature. Focus your attacks, Xiao Xiao ordered after a brief pause. They would need to weaken the barrier slightly and have more people launch attacks in hopes of breaking through the demon corpse's defenses. Senior Sister Xiao Xiao, we seem to have been spotted, said Qingyi suddenly, his expression changing. Xiao Xiao and Wang Yan's eyes narrowed at the warning, and they looked up to see several figures approaching quickly from the sky. Soon, they could make out a large group of people, numbering about 100. However, these people did not seem to belong to any single faction. They appeared to be members of various small roaming forces in the Eastern Mystery region. Such groups were often more troublesome to deal with, as they were hardened by survival in harsh environments and had little fear of the large sects. Leading the group were 4 middle-aged men, their faces thin and sharp, their eyes gleaming with a cunning light, showing they were all highly experienced. A demon corpse, huh? Their gazes were drawn to the demon corpse being held by the Dao sect disciples. Their attention then shifted to the demon corpse's energy core, where a faint white light glowed. The life mystique bone pill spinning within it immediately caused many of their eyes to burn with greed. A life mystique bone pill. What a treasure. These guys are really lucky, said a man with a hooked nose, licking his lips as he stared at the distant scene with a fiery gaze. Those are Dao sect disciples, murmured a man in red robes standing beside him, frowning as he looked at the large group of disciples. Tough crowd. Heh, does the infamous Lu Tao, known as the Red Demon Hand, get scared off by some Dao sect brats? Scoffed a gaunt man, his dry skin stretched tight over his bones. Don't mock me, withered bone. I've been through worse than you can imagine, Lu Tao sneered in response. Well then, are you interested in this situation? Withered Bone asked with a sly grin. They don't seem to be able to handle that demon corpse. If we step in, we'd be helping them out. I'm sure they'll appreciate it, Lu Tao said with a sinister smile. They have numbers on their side. Another man behind the red-robed Lu Tao remarked. They're just a bunch of sheltered disciples living under the protection of their sections. How could they compare to us, who fight for our lives every day? If they're smart, they'll back off and let us take over. If not, we might have to teach them a lesson, the hook-nosed man said with a smirk, a hint of disdain in his voice. Let's go take a closer look, Lu Tao said with a wave of his hand, leading the large group toward the Dao sect disciples. As they moved, the Dao sect disciples, who had been watching them closely, tensed. EngSubs and Wang Yan's eyes filled with coldness. Everyone, we are dealing with a dangerous demonic creature. To avoid being caught in the crossfire, we kindly ask that you keep your distance, EngSubs said sternly, signaling Wang Yan to stay on guard. Heh, it looks like you're having a hard time with that demon corpse. Why not let us help? You Dao sect disciples need to save your strength for the other sections. Don't waste it here, Withered Bones said with a grin, his words dripping with bad intentions. Hearing his words, EngSubs' expression darkened. Her eyes scanned the four men leading the group, and she realized that all of them were at the 9th Nirvana stage, making them small but formidable leaders. Such people were often more troublesome than larger factions because they had no fixed base. Even if the Dao sect sought revenge later, tracking them down would be difficult. While EngSubs knew they wouldn't dare to go as far as murdering Dao sect disciples, they wouldn't hesitate to stir up trouble. We Dao sect disciples can handle this demon corpse ourselves. There's no need for your interference. If you know what's good for you, leave immediately. Wang Yan, who had less patience than EngSubs, spoke with cold disdain. His aura surged, and his black heavy sword gleamed with a menacing light. Heh, quite the arrogant tone, Lu Tao and his three companions sneered. Wang Yan, you may be ranked second on the sect's wanted list, but don't think you can scare us with that. We've been through more than you can imagine, Lu Tao retorted coldly. Then come and try. Wang Yan's gaze was icy and sinister as he took a step forward, his eyes fixated fiercely on the group before him. He knew that when dealing with people like these, even showing the slightest weakness would give them the courage to push their advantage. The Dao sect disciples were equally enraged, their eyes filled with fury. If it weren't for the need to maintain the formation to seal off the demon corpse, they would likely have already attacked and cut these troublemakers down. Hmph, in your current state, you still dare to be arrogant? If we break your formation, the demon corpse will be unleashed, and when that happens, your Dao sect disciples will suffer heavy casualties. Lu Tao's voice was cold and menacing, full of threats. EngSubs' gaze chilled as well. She made a subtle hand gesture, and immediately, 100 Dao sect disciples withdrew from the formation, taking up positions behind her. Their cold eyes locked onto the group in front, clearly showing that they had no intention of backing down. Heh, what nerve, Lu Tao and the others muttered, their expressions darkening slightly as they noticed the formation weakening due to the withdrawal of the 100 disciples. It seemed they hadn't expected EngSubs to dare defy them at this critical moment. If that's how you want it, don't blame us for being rude. The hook-nosed man's eyes flashed with malice, and with a sneer, he stepped forward. Vast primordial energy surged around him as he raised his hand, ready to strike. Swoosh! Just as he was about to bring his hand down, a sudden rushing sound pierced the air. A figure shot forward like a ghost, and in a blink, appeared above the hook-nosed man. A violent gust of wind followed, as a dark shadow came crashing down. Who dares? The sudden attack caught the hook-nosed man by surprise. His expression changed, and he quickly crossed his hands to form a shield of radiant golden light above his head. Boom! There was no response, only the heavy blow of a black tree trunk slamming into the golden shield. The shield shattered almost instantly, and the force of the strike continued downward, landing heavily on the hook-nosed man's body. Spurt! Blood spurted from the hook-nosed man's mouth as his body was sent flying, crashing into the ground below and leaving a large crater in his wake. Who's there? The swift and brutal attack caused Lu Tao and the others to pale in shock. They quickly looked up, only to see a slender young man standing not far away, holding an unusual black tree trunk in his hand. At that moment, the young man's gaze was cold and dangerous as he stared at them. His lips curled into a sinister smile as a voice, laced with killing intent, echoed through the air. A bunch of nobodies, and you think you can mess with the Tao sect? Leave in 10 breaths or die.